Thank you for listening to the Weeknight Mysteries podcast. My name is Yuras and I'm here with my co-host Rain. How are you, Rain?
Hello, everyone. Completely okay, as always. How are you
Awesome.
today?
Pretty good. Today we're going to be talking about a murder case, a murder of a 29-year-old mother of two, Elena Sanchez Hawkins. I would probably say that this is a lesser known case. And I felt like we should talk about Elena's case because to me it seemed like it could potentially be solved one day.
Yeah, I've never actually heard about this case. Do you mind telling us the details?
Yeah, certainly. Let's talk a little bit about what happened to Elena. Elena Sanchez Hawkins. She was murdered inside of her Kentucky home. She was only 29 when she was killed. There was a black truck spotted at the house, or let's say leaving the house, at the time when she was murdered. And that black truck is what we are holding on to right now as the main clue that could potentially solve this crime one day. Elena was a young mother of two boys. She was known to keep to herself and was usually with her family. Either that or she was working as an attendant at a local gas station. Elena and her family lived in a small town in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, which was approximately 45 minutes south of Louisville. Louisville being the big city in Kentucky. So it's like a smaller city generally in the, I guess, Kentucky area. In like the Louisville area. The day when she was murdered was January 8th, 1992. It was a Wednesday. So this case happened many years ago. I believe it's been more than 30 years since Elena has been murdered. Elena's husband, Michael Hawkins, had left early for work. He was working at a local convenience store. At that time, Elena was home with her two young boys. By 7 a.m. in the morning, Michael called Elena to make sure that their eldest son was awake and that he made the school bus, but no one answered the phone. This was possibly due to the fact that maybe Elena was actually at this point walking that eldest son to the bus station.
Really quickly, I'm so sorry, but I just want to know, was Louisville or the place where they were living in, Elizabethtown, was it kind of like rural or was it a city?
It's definitely a city, but it's
okay.
definitely a small city. We're not talking about sky rises.
No, but we're also not talking about just rows of fields.
No, definitely we have some people living there. If I'm not mistaken, it was 30,000 people there.
Oh, not bad.
Something like that.
So the distance of their home to the school, it's a walkable distance, right?
I don't think so because the eldest boy was about to take the bus.
Oh.
So it's presumed when Michael called Elena for the first time, because he's going to call the second time. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. It's presumed that when he made the first call, Elena was out with the eldest son because she was walking him to the bus station.
To the bus stop, okay.
Right. So far, everything's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so far everything seems normal. It just seems like the dad was a very caring dad. Calling at 7 a.m. just to check up if the son, the firstborn, was already in school or something.
You don't find that strange?
I find it really strange. However, maybe I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt. That maybe he was just a really caring father.
Maybe that was the tradition. Call every morning once you get to the office.
Make sure everyone's awake.
Yeah. Because this is 1992. So there are no personal cell phones or text
But there could have been
messages.
alarms. Alarm clocks.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say here is that, nowadays you would just send a text message and you would not,
that's true.
and you wouldn't think nothing of it.
Mm-hmm.
But back in 92, if you wanted to see how the family is doing in the morning, you would basically have to call them. So I think it would be strange to maybe call nowadays when you could just send
Definitely, yeah.
a text.
I'm just curious if it was a daily thing, the calling at 7 a.m.
Yeah, I would like to know that.
Right?
I think that would be important to this case. Because if it's not a daily thing, then
it's weird.
Then it's weird because potentially this would mean that Michael, the husband, may have sensed that something
was off.
Something terrible could happen on this January Wednesday. Strange.
Mm-hmm.
Around 7:30 a.m., 30 minutes after Michael's phone call, a neighbor recalled seeing an older model black Datsun pickup truck leaving the home. The truck had been described as having a short bed, no chrome, and a standard cab, as well as a tie-down hooks and a metal topper on the bed. So we're talking about a old school black truck with a metal topper. So I actually had to look.
What's a metal topper?
Exactly. I had to look into what the metal topper is. And if you would scroll down in our file, I actually included a screenshot of a metal topper.
Oh, okay. I could see it now.
Can you describe what it is to the
I
audience?
honestly don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like a UFO box container on top of the car-ish.
I regret asking you to describe it.
It looks like a submarine for me.
Okay, so basically, if you would imagine a stereotypical pickup truck, it has a bed in the back, like where you could store stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And some pickup trucks have like covers for the bed.
Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I was looking at it from a different perspective. Now it makes sense. Sorry, everyone.
You thought this was the front of the car?
I thought the gray part was the front of the car, and I was like, what am I looking at here?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's basically to make the pickup truck covered, the back of it.
Yeah. Makes you question. Is this person hiding something in the bed of the pickup truck?
Very good question.
By 10 a.m., this is 3 hours after the first call, Michael makes a second phone call to the home to make sure that their eldest son made the bus once again. Pretty strange. Why are we making this phone call twice? But once again, 1992, maybe this is a regular thing to do. Their 3-year-old son, the youngest one, picks up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells Michael, his father, that mommy is bleeding. So Michael immediately rushes back home. And then he found his wife dead in the living room on their family home. Police were called immediately. And when they came in, they found no signs of forced entry. It is believed that Elena may have known her assailant. Before Elena was killed, she worked for a local gas station on West Dixie Avenue, where she reported that a particular man gave her strange looks and made her feel uncomfortable, I assume on multiple occasions.
Creepy.
This thing went from 0 to 100.
Yeah, definitely.
In a few moments.
Mm-hmm.
So this would mean that maybe the person who was driving the black pickup truck
was someone familiar to the family.
Someone familiar to the family, or at least to Elena.
Mm-hmm. But did the husband recognize the pickup truck?
No, I don't think anyone ever recognized the pickup truck. No one reported knowing anybody who had a pickup truck like that.
Are we opening up an assumption of a lover?
No, I'm not opening up nothing.
Okay.
Are you thinking that way?
Kinda.
Okay.
If the pickup truck wasn't familiar to anyone else, but like we're assuming that whoever
Elena.
the killer was familiar to Alana.
I never
Is there
actually.
a possibility?
I don't know. Actually, I never thought about this possibility, but I mean, I can't really think why not either. You know, it's maybe really unlikely. Elena was said to be a very private person.
Oh, okay.
So she's not the type of person that's gonna go out and find a lot of people. Besides, she looked like she was just taking care of her 2 kids.
That's true.
At that point, I didn't find any information that would make us believe that she would have a lover. So I have to ask, do you think it's a bit strange that Michael called for the second time? Or do you think it's normal?
I honestly have to know if it was a regular thing. Because I don't know, I find it really strange, but maybe that's how their family work. He's an early bird. He wakes up, he goes to work, and he checks up on everyone, hoping that everyone's awake. Could be a normal thing, but it's just strange.
I think it could also make sense because when he called at 7 a.m. and no one picked up, maybe he made a mental note for himself, okay, I'm gonna call later.
Oh yeah, true.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. No one picked up. I'll check up on them later. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So maybe we're just looking
way too deep into it.
Way too deep into these phone calls that could be completely irregular. Nothing strange there, right? When Elena's body was examined, well, it was basically lying there in the living room. It was noted that her throat was cut, her wrists were bound, and she was assayed prior to her death. Her cause of death was extreme blood loss. An investigation ensued, and her husband Michael was cleared as a suspect very early in the process. Unfortunately, little leads surfaced, and the case stalled. Today, the case seems to be still cold because nothing new has come about. Elena's case remains unsolved. The most recent update revolves around the possible person of interest. We do have a person of interest because in August of 2008, so this had to be 16 years later, this person of interest that we're going to be talking about was convicted of another very similar crime in Breckinridge County when a woman was assaulted and her throat was cut in her own home. She pretended to be dead in the hopes that this person of interest that attacked her would leave her before she was able to call for help. So she was successful. She pretended to be dead, and the man left. This individual had previously lived in Elizabethtown during the time of Elena's attack. While this individual has been named a possible person of interest, it is unclear if he had been interviewed in connection to Elena's case. Is it possible that Elena knew her killer? Could this individual be connected to Elena's murder? Did this individual have other victims? And who was the driver of that black pickup truck that morning when Elena was murdered? Now, we actually have a name of this person of interest. I was digging around, making a few Google searches, and I was able to find the man that they were talking about. This was back in 2008. I can't recall when this article is from, but basically at that point when they arrested this, so I think in 2008 when they arrested Ernest Pine, is the man, the person of interest, he was 58. So back in 1992, Ernest Pine would have been 42 years of age. Okay, so we have some information. I'm going to be just reading a little bit of that article, so just stop me at any point.
Of course.
If you want something to be clarified. So let's talk about Ernest Pine, the potential culprit, the potential killer of Elena. After a brutal attempted murder in Breckenridge County, the media investigating a cold case out of Elizabethtown, we're talking about Elena Sanchez Hawkins murder. She reported that the lady for talking to the media, I know this is like all over the place. Just stick with me for 2 more seconds. She reported that state police say that the 2 cases have a striking resemblance, and they could finally be close to uncovering some answers to the brutal murder of Elena Sanchez. Neighbors and friends of a Breckenridge County woman say she's lucky to be alive. I think so. He cut her throat from here to here, and she had wounds across her chest and her stomach and different areas, said Larry Frame, a neighbor of the surviving woman, the woman that pretended to be dead but survived. Another person said, I thought it was a movie or something, said Janae Powell, a friend of the victim. The victim told police that her neighbor, 58-year-old Ernest Pine, so the culprit who almost killed this woman is, I think, staying anonymous. Yeah. We don't know her name, but we know the potential killer's name, Ernest Pine. He was actually a 58-year-old neighbor of this woman. So we never know who you live next to when you think about it. So he came into her house and attacked her. Now, she was living in Hardinsburg, which is about 40 miles away from Elizabethtown. But the interesting fact here is that Ernest Pine was actually living in Elizabethtown back in 1992. And now when you think about it, the manner of attack is very similar.
Eerily similar.
Yeah, basically Ernest Pine came into this victim's home and he said, "You're going to die tonight."
Jeez.
Kentucky State Police said that Ernest Pine slashed the victim with a knife repeatedly and essayed her. Although the investigation into Ernest Pine's attack is just beginning in Breckenridge County, law enforcement say this case does resemble Elena Sanchez Hawkins' murder. 16 years ago, someone essayed Elena. Well, this was happening back in 2008, so it's been more than 16 years. But, in 2008, it was a 16-year-old case at that point. I hope I'm making sense here. If like, something doesn't make sense, please let me know, because, I'm just, like, talking.
Yeah, no worries. Everything makes sense so far.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm talking, it makes sense in my head, but I just hope everyone else kind of understands what I'm trying to say here, because I'm just, trying to go through my notes here. So, basically, law enforcement said that Elena Sanchez was also essayed. And the fact that she was essayed is similar.
Ooh, okay.
That's a similarity in the 2 cases. So, also, let's see what we do have here. Law enforcement said this did involve essay. It did involve a murder, a knife with severe lacerations. Police said that Elena Hawkins may have known her assailant. Ernest Pine lived in Elizabethtown for some time, but he was never considered a suspect back in the day. However, the similarities between the cases have authorities questioning whether Ernest Pine is connected to Elena Sanchez Hawkins' murder as well. There have been quite a few people from the community that remember that case from 1992 that have phoned in or sent in email tips. If there is evidence in that direction, we are going to check into it. I'm sure we will, said the detective. Detective also says that police will gather all of their evidence in Breckenridge County attempted murder before moving on with the cold case of Elena Sanchez. Ernest Pine will be arraigned in court on Tuesday. He is charged with burglary, essay, and attempted murder. Detectives know Pine lived in Elizabethtown at least from 94 to 1998 because of a civil suit he filed, but Pine was never considered a suspect. So let's remember that Elena was murdered in 1992. Oh, so wait, is this article saying that we don't... Oh, so if I understand correctly, then we don't really know if this guy was living in Elizabethtown in 1992, because the law enforcement said that they know that he was living in Elizabethtown from 94 to 98. But Elena was murdered in 92, so I guess we don't really know if this guy was living there. But we know that he lived there right after. That's what I'm assuming.
I'm actually just thinking if this guy was actually the culprit, then how did he get in? And was he driving a black pickup truck?
Yes, that's a very good question. What kind of a car he was driving at that point?
And what's the connection with Elena?
Yeah, right. So you asked a very good question. You asked, how did the person got into the house?
Yeah.
And there is a possible explanation. Maybe...
Cable people.
Cable people?
Sorry, like installation people.
Really?
Is it a possibility? I'm just asking. Like, a black pickup truck maybe drove into the neighborhood and then knocked into Elena's doors and was pretended that they were gonna install something or they're gonna check the pipes.
That's actually a good thought. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was going to suggest a different possibility. What I was going to suggest that maybe as Elena was walking the oldest kid, that person snuck into the house.
Oh, yeah.
And that person already found, well, that's why there was no forced entry, because maybe he was able to just creep into the house.
Oh, that's true.
But that would also be very strange, because that would mean that when Elena left the house to walk the eldest boy to the bus stop, that would mean that she would not lock the door and leave the 3-year-old youngest child there, which is kind of too... I mean, if I understand correctly, you can't really leave an unlocked door with a 3-year-old.
No, I don't think so.
You can't even leave a 3-year-old at the house alone, right?
Exactly.
Or can you?
No, you can't.
You can't, right?
Well, unless
it's like right there.
Or napping.
5 seconds or napping.
But still, no. It's too risky.
Maybe I wish we knew how far away was the bus stop from the home.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it could be that the bus stop was really close to the home, which wouldn't be that weird if it's like, just walking across the front lawn.
Yeah.
Also, it's pretty strange because Michael first calls the house at 7 a.m. and the truck already leaves at 7:30 a.m. So if we think that the culprit was driving the truck, that would mean that this was a very in and out situation. And let's remember that SA was involved, and SA was involved, and I believe, yes, and Elena's arms were bound.
Yeah.
So first of all, I have a question. How do you get someone to get their arms bound, especially a mother that knows that there's a 3-year-old child in the house?
I mean, at least we definitely know it was a man. Because a man could easily overpower a woman.
Her wrists were bound. So you know what I'm thinking? I'm assuming that this was all done at gunpoint because...
No. Elena could have been easily overpowered. 42-year-old male.
But there were no signs of that.
No signs of struggle.
I think so. And there was never any mention of any DNA. So... Oh. But then again, if she was SA'd, I don't understand how there's no DNA on the body.
That is true.
Maybe there is DNA, they just were never able to connect it.
Potentially, yeah.
I'm also thinking if there's a 3-year-old child, then Elena would be super protective of that child. And how would you get someone to bound their wrists as the child is there?
The child was threatened.
But I think it's even a bigger threat to allow someone to bound your wrist. You're basically losing so much of your mobility.
Well, if your child is at gunpoint, then you would do anything.
But how are you so certain that this culprit is not going to hurt your child after you're bound?
Well, what if what happened is that, like, sit right there, let me bound your hands, otherwise something bad's gonna happen to your kid.
And also, how do you bound someone if you're like
sitting down?
Yeah, but then you are the one that's supposed to tie up the wrists, right?
Yeah, and so there would be DNA.
Do you think there was multiple culprits? It's a possibility. Why not?
Oh, do you think there's a possibility? This happened in January, right?
Yeah, January 8th. So it's cold.
It's still cold.
In Kentucky, I assume it's cold.
You think there's a possibility that whoever the culprit was, he or she was wearing gloves?
Yes.
Would explain the lack of DNA.
Yeah. I think, and it's not even that they were wearing winter gloves. I think they could just be wearing in general. I think wearing a set of gloves in January is not that suspicious.
Trying to remember last January, I was still wearing gloves.
Yeah. We have cold Januaries.
Oh, true.
So we definitely would not be weirded out by someone wearing gloves. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so another few details that I kind of wanted to touch upon is the eldest child's school bus trip. It was never mentioned, but I just assumed that the eldest child got onto the school bus and basically went to school that day. But it was never mentioned what the eldest child remembers, because we know that the 3-year-old probably can't remember much at that point.
Or the 3-year-old didn't actually see anything because
he was somewhere upstairs or something.
Potentially, because
yeah, that's also
a kid could still be traumatized.
Yeah, it's never mentioned.
Yeah, but by the sounds of it, it looks like the kid just went down on this first floor or something, or in the living room, and just saw the mom
bleeding.
Yeah.
And said, "Mommy's bleeding."
Mm-hmm. A 3-year-old could say like there was a man in there.
I think the 3-year-old would probably
remember at least something more than just mom is bleeding.
And by the time Michael called again, the black pickup truck had already left 2.5 hours ago. So at that point, probably Elena is long dead. Unfortunately, yeah. So by the time he arrived home, she was probably long dead. There was probably just a pool of blood.
Mm-hmm.
So I presume that the eldest child saw nothing and wasn't able to provide any useful information.
So, yeah.
Unless law enforcement knows something more and they're just, holding on to that information.
What about the neighbors? Did the neighbors hear anything? Do you have any reports or records about it?
The only neighbor report is that they did see a black pickup truck leaving the house.
But no screams.
Yeah, and I don't even know if this black pickup truck is actually connected to the murder. We're just presuming that it is, because it's the only clue that's available to us online.
Man, this is a tough one.
Yeah, there's nothing really other than that pickup truck.
I honestly couldn't think of anyone else. Maybe...
Well, before you go on somewhere...
Okay.
Let me remind you that Elena reported a strange man giving her strange looks at her work. And she was working, I believe, in a gas station.
That's creepy.
Elena was killed, but yeah, she worked in the West Dixie Avenue gas station, and she reported that a man gave her strange looks and made her feel uncomfortable.
But this man, she only saw him once or twice, or multiple times?
I believe that she saw him multiple times just because of how the article worded this clue.
Mm-hmm.
because I think if it was just a one-time occasion, she maybe wouldn't be that weirded out to report it to someone, because working at the gas station, you probably see a bunch of one-time weird clients. So I'm just going on a limb here, and I'm thinking that maybe this was a multiple occasion situation with this weird guy.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yep. You have a very good idea there.
So right now we have two potential persons of interest. A mystery man from the gas station that we don't know anything about. We have Ernest Pine, a person who just barged in to a house and said, "You will die tonight." And this man slashes the throat of this victim in 2008. And once the victim pretends to be dead, he just walks out. We don't know any more information, how he got apprehended. I presume this man wasn't even trying to hide his crime or anything like that. So, and it was a neighbor out of nowhere. So maybe there was some sort of a
feud.
A feud between the neighbors.
Yeah, it sounded like, sorry, it just sounded like he acted out of anger.
Yeah, you're going to die tonight. Yeah, so we don't have much more information, but you can find Ernest Pine or Pike. What was his name? Ernest Pine. You could Google this man and you could find some information about Ernest Pine. So this guy is actually set to be potentially released on parole next year.
Okay.
So he's 72, I believe, or something like that. So he's now a older boy.
Older man.
Terrible man. And when I look at Ernest Pine, I don't know, I could feel like he has more bodies under his name, because he does have that stereotypical older white guy murderer face.
Oh, that sounds really bad.
But do you know what I'm talking about? I mean, maybe honestly, you put any older white guy in front of a, like, the mugshot.
Angry.
No, I think you put any older white guy in front of that measuring wall. Do you know the wall you stand?
Yeah, the prison thingy wall.
The prison wall where you they take
Measures
a picture of you.
A height.
Yeah, and your height is there. I think you put any white guy and you give them the outfit, the uniform, and I think they will look like the stereotypical white older guy serial killer.
Disclaimer for our audience: the one who's talking is a white guy, so don't hate on us.
Yeah. So.
Wait, sorry.
Oh yeah, I hope it's understandable. I'm a white guy because
white guy with the potential to be an angry white guy in the future, old angry white guy in the future.
Oh, definitely. So yeah, all I'm gonna say is that I don't know. Seems like this type of guy could. Honestly, it's hard to say because from the information we have about Ernest Pine, it doesn't seem like he tried to cover up his attempted murder in 2008. So what I'm going to try to say here is that would someone like that, could he have committed more murders if he's not like being very careful?
I honestly think whoever killed Elena was very sneaky. Kind of calculated.
Yes.
Because everyone's out of the house. There was only a 3-year-old kid and the mom, Elena.
You're saying that this culprit studied the pattern.
Kinda better than Ernest did. Yeah, because Ernest just barged in and slashed someone's throat.
Yeah, at least that's the information we have.
I think whoever was the culprit, it's a little bit more calculated.
Calculated murder.
Not the most calculated, of course, but there was some thought put into it.
Yeah, you still have to wait for the perfect moment.
Yeah, I would say maybe Ernest was not it
Yeah.
and was not the stalker.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do think that weird customer from the gas station who most likely have seen Elena multiple times, it's kind of screams like he had that potential to do it.
Do you think that Elena's murder was a pre-planned murder, or do you think it was a random murder? Do you think Elena was targeted, or do you think Elena was a random victim?
For some reason, I'm kind of thinking it was a targeted attack.
That she was targeted.
Yeah, mainly because, well, it could be random as well, but how lucky could you be? Like, everyone's out of the house
At that particular hour,
at that particular day.
7 a.m. on a Wednesday, you don't expect to find a single, well, just a one woman.
When Elena was not working.
Yeah, just one woman in a house.
And a baby.
At 7 a.m. Yeah. No teenage sons that could
Nothing.
fight you, no husband that's like getting ready for work. Just Elena.
She was just vulnerable there.
Super, like the most vulnerable time just to commit this murder, and you pick that exact time.
It couldn't be just random.
I feel like it was. It was pre-planned, in my opinion. So this leaves us the question: does the person from the gas store, did they somehow target her, followed her back home, then studied her patterns, and then proceeded to murder her?
I think so. An essay. Remember, there was an essay situation.
But I'm thinking, why Elena? Because Elena didn't seem to have, at least from the information we have, Elena didn't seem to have any enemies.
I was actually supposed to ask you that. Did the family have any enemies?
Not that we know of.
Yeah, because they seem like they were just a typical nice family.
That's the information that we have. Obviously, we don't know everything.
True.
So we can't really say for certain that there wasn't an active feud with someone. But also, this was never brought up. And there were other things that were brought up, such as like that strange encounter at the gas station. So if they brought this up in the media, I feel like they would bring up anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Also, we have to also think about the little kid, the 3-year-old. That kid was left unharmed.
Exactly. That's a very good point. That kid was left unharmed. That means that this person was not a person who would murder kids.
Or they were just there, whoever they were, for Elaine.
Yeah. That also makes me think that, okay, so how does law enforcement solve this? What do they have to do?
At this point, I don't know.
I think they have DNA.
Do you think so?
I mean,
The first
I don't
investigation didn't have any DNA.
know. No, it was never mentioned.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just assuming that they have some DNA. I mean, how can you assay someone and leave no DNA? Is that even a possibility?
That's true.
So I assume they have DNA. So what they have to do now is they have to look at the database, try to connect something via DNA.
That very technological advanced thing they're doing. The genes or something.
Yeah. Well, I think that's also like DNA based.
Yeah, the advanced DNA.
They also have to look at black trucks.
Within the area back then?
Back
That's
then.
going to be a tall order.
They have to look at the blacks. I'm pretty sure they've done all of this stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, most likely.
You know, we're just random.
At the moment.
We're just random people talking about crime.
Not
So,
even proper detectives or
nothing.
investigators.
We're
We're just interested.
yeah, we're actually terrible at investigating crimes, I would say.
Maybe.
I would say we're definitely below average. But going back, so they have to look at the cars. What else? I mean, I guess there's, something about this case that just makes me think that law enforcement has more information that they're letting people know.
What about neighbors? Did they ever investigate neighbors?
Neighbors, that's a good point.
Because what if there was no black pickup truck in the first place? And
I'm sorry, but I thought you were going to say, what if there was no black neighbors?
Oh no, jeez, no.
Okay, no black pickup trucks in the
neighborhood.
Neighborhood.
And where did they get that information? From multiple sources or from one?
I think just one. One source was the neighbor who reported seeing that pickup truck.
Could be real, could not be real, although I do think it's quite real because of how detailed that information was.
Is there anything else that stands out to you in this case that we haven't talked about?
Not necessarily, actually.
I can't think of anything else, and I do think that we dissected this case enough to the point where it's, respectfully... What am I trying to say here? Respectfully unspeculatory. Like, we're not going to crazy speculation here. I think we basically looked at every potential little detail, and we kind of talked about it. So I do think that the Elena Sanchez Hawkins case, it's been over 30 years now, and I don't know, at this point it's hard to say why it's still not solved, in my opinion. I don't understand why it's still not solved, because they may have DNA there, but I'm just really hoping that someone's gonna solve the case, because
and give justice to the family.
It's
been so long now.
It's a terrible case, so let's hope for the best.